While the Steam Deck certainly wasn't the first device in the handheld PC category to hit the market, it was undoubtedly the first to have a broad appeal, mainly thanks to its price, undercutting the competition by a significant margin. Since then, even more handheld PCs have hit store shelves, but only one has really posed a threat to the Steam Deck's dominance: the Asus ROG Ally. After some time with both devices, I have found that for all their similarities on the surface, each feels quite different during use. While there are a select few differences that might be deal breakers for those seeking specific features, for my money, I believe there's one determining factor in whether you should pick one over the other: their ease of use. But before we get to that, let's talk about those potential deal breakers. While both devices feature a similar form factor, the Ally has a smaller profile. However, it's not so big a difference that I believe it to be substantially more portable than the Deck. The Deck is more rounded in a way that is designed to fill out your hands. The Ally has more edges, with the design intended for you to rest your palms on its angled corners. Personally, I think the Deck is more comfortable, and its ergonomic design better distributes its additional 69 grams in comparison to the Ally. That being said, reviewers that have used both devices have given preference to the Ally in terms of comfort, so this is going to differ depending on the user. Something that I don't think will differ based on user preference is nearly all the other differentiating hardware factors. The Steam Deck is superior in several sectors. The Ally's face buttons are straight up poor. They may be bigger than the Steam Deck's, but they are way too mushy. When you press one of the Deck's buttons, you're getting a consistent tactile feel. The Ally's buttons are much spongier, and therefore inconsistent to the touch. The tension on Steam Deck's thumbsticks is far superior and comparable to what you would experience with one of the console controllers. While I don't think the Ally's thumbsticks are nearly as bad as, say, Joy-Cons, since they have full range of motion, they still lack the precision and smoothness necessary, and their severe resistance deficiency makes them feel rather flimsy. Trackpads. The Ally doesn't have them, but they're one of the best hardware features on the Steam Deck. Not only are they a great way to navigate the UI, especially in desktop mode, but they make games that are better suited to mouse input, such as XCOM, far more friendly to play on the device. The Steam Deck has two dedicated volume buttons along the top of the device toward the left-hand side. The Ally has a volume rocker more toward the middle. With the former, it's easy to slide your hand up and press the buttons while still keeping somewhat of a grip on the device. With the latter, you need to take your hand off the device in order to press them. It's something that seems like a minute nitpick, but it's small design differences such as these that make for a more pleasant long-term experience. This one is maybe more a matter of opinion than the other physical elements, but I'm much more a fan of the Steam Deck's cross D-pad than the Ally's circular one. The Ally has the leg up over the Steam Deck in a few areas design-wise, however. Triggers and bumpers. I much prefer what the Ally is packing in this department compared to the Deck. The triggers offer the right amount of resistance, and the bumpers are substantial with a satisfying click to them. On the Steam Deck, the triggers don't provide enough resistance comparatively, and the bumpers that are flush with the top of the device not only offer little in feedback, but are far too easy to accidentally press in with the side of your finger when attempting to press a trigger instead. I do wish the Ally was able to match the 4 back paddles that are on the Steam Deck rather than just the 2, as they are a feature I utilize often. That being said, the ones in the Ally are designed better, offering improved response, and they match the curve of your fingers when resting on them, rather than forcing you to grip the device as firmly on the Steam Deck. While the Steam Deck has fantastic speakers, to my ears not only do the Allies get louder, but they offer a better, more full-sounding range. Screen. This is where the Ally truly outshines the Steam Deck, and this is ultimately probably the most important hardware feature. Not only is it a higher resolution at 1080p compared to the Steam Deck's 800p, but it sports a 120Hz refresh rate as opposed to the Steam Deck's 60Hz. Combined with the fact that the Ally uses an IPS panel for better colors, everything looks and feels way better, especially when moving through the software, and using the touchscreen feels way more precise. What also helps give the ROG Ally the edge on performance is AMD's new Z1 Extreme, which is the chip that is doing all the processing on the device. It's a substantial increase in performance over what is packed into the Steam Deck. At least the model that's available is. Later this year, a cheaper Ally with a standard Z1 will be released, which is a chip closer in spec to the Steam Deck. But right now, the $700 Ally that's available, even compared to Steam Deck's most expensive offering at $650, kind of blows it out of the water from pure performance, particularly if you have it plugged in, which allows for a high-performance mode since you're not solely relying on your battery. The Steam Deck doesn't have any kind of performance boosting feature when plugging it in. Still, even unplugged, the Ally's performance increase is noticeable, and thankfully, when you do want to plug in, the Ally's power supply has a much longer cable than the Deck's. One area where the Deck beats out the Ally in terms of performance is in lower power states. Cranking both devices down to their lowest battery consumption options, the Deck seems to perform on par or even better in many cases than the Ally. If you're truly intending to do a lot of traveling with one of these devices and believe you will frequently be without an opportunity to charge them, the Steam Deck has an edge in this category of getting more bang for your buck out of its battery. On the software side, that's where the Ally and Steam Deck diverge even further. The former uses plain old Windows 11 out of the box, while the Steam Deck, by default, runs on its custom Linux-based SteamOS. That means that a selection of games are unplayable, whether it be titles that use certain anti-cheat software, or ones that simply don't play nice with Proton, which is the compatibility layer of the Steam Deck that allows it to play Windows titles. Since the Ally runs Windows, not only can it play essentially every game available through Steam, but it can take advantage of services such as Xbox Game Pass and run those games natively rather than only over the cloud, as is your only option with the service on SteamOS. It's been awesome to be able to jump into a round of Call of Duty Warzone or pick up where I left off in the Lies of P demo from my Xbox. If you're a big multiplayer gamer or take advantage of Xbox Game Pass regularly, the Ally might be the better device for you. However, the single factor that I think should determine whether or not you choose an Ally over the Steam Deck, like I said in the beginning, is ease of use. Yes, you can buy a Steam Deck and install Windows 11 on it, no problem. But part of the appeal of the device, even though it doesn't allow for every game to be playable, is SteamOS. It creates a much simpler console-like experience, and combined with Steam Deck's compatibility ratings, makes it easy to understand what can be played, and when you go to play those games, they work as intended. The same cannot be said for the Ally and Windows 11, which has provided more headaches during the limited time I've had with the device than in the months I've had with the Steam Deck. Simply put, the quirks of Windows 11 are exacerbated by the Ally's form factor. For example, I installed Call of Duty Warzone initially via Battle.net, but I just couldn't get it to run smoothly and it's stuck on 4% shader compiling. I then tried installing it via Steam, but for some reason, my right stick wouldn't work. After looking for a solution online, it turns out this is an issue with Warzone on Steam in general, not just on the Ally. And while the solution was easy enough to execute, having to do so restricted to touch and control inputs made it much more cumbersome than doing so on a PC would have. Yes, I could have hooked up a keyboard and mouse on the device, but that's hardly a convenient solution, not to mention not something that would really be possible if I was on the go. Like on a more traditional PC, however, Steam is still the friendliest software to use on the Ally. Booting up the Xbox app to play games through my Game Pass subscription has produced a number of challenges, whether it be games not booting up when I tap on them to play, or they do actually boot up but somehow, somewhere remain hidden. Sometimes the time from turning on your Ally to playing a title via Xbox Game Pass takes much longer than you would hope. Put simply, while the Steam Deck might be more limited on what games you can and cannot play, the games that fall into the former category have significantly fewer barriers in the way to get them up and running well in comparison to the Ally. While Asus does have its own layer of software it calls Armory Crate that is designed to give a SteamOS-like experience, it absolutely pales in comparison. From issues of it not loading, to not keeping up to date on which games you have installed, to just generally being much harder to use and decipher than what Steam offers, you're better off really not using it. It doesn't even have a way to shut down a game which you're playing, which feels like should be a fundamental feature to the software. Honestly, whether the Ally becomes a more user-friendly device doesn't just rely on Asus's ability to improve its software features. It also, in a large part, depends on whether Microsoft makes a version of Windows that plays nicely with these kinds of products, which we already know there has been some internal testing on, making a handheld gaming interface at the company. Even still, I think ultimately Steam's approach to making a bespoke operating system designed from the ground up for the deck is always going to trounce slapping the normal Windows OS onto a handheld device. Time will tell how much a gaming handheld-focused version of Windows would improve the experience. If you're a PowerPC user, and you're okay with needing to frequently troubleshoot the quirks of the Ally, then the device has a few key elements on offer that the Steam Deck simply cannot match. But for everyone else, especially those dipping their toes into the PC gaming world for the first time, the usability of Valve's handheld is worth the trade-off.